The Shift is brought to you by Joy Metrics. Welcome to The Shift. I'm Dr. Andrea Coyle. Shifties, welcome back to the next episode of the Shift podcast. The next Shifty joining us today is Denni Wilson-Lowber, coming to us from Oklahoma via Dallas, Texas. And Denni and I were having a conversation, just getting to know one another. We always do a meet and greet, and we found out we have all these connections. Like we're both Daisy honorees. We both did some travel nursing. We both followed each other on LinkedIn and never really made the connection. So, Denni, welcome to the Shift podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
You have an amazing story and talk about shifts. Will you kind of walk us through the shifts that led you to the great work that you're doing right now?
Well, um, every nurse knows it as they're aging in the system. You just
Mhm.
become more and more drawn to be go into management or more like an architectural type of nurse to where you can help leadership and things like that. And I had made that decision. I was ready to do that, but nobody warned me about that loss of just sense of self when you do that, So it was I made the shift to management and now it's like, but I'm very, very deeply indebted to taking care of patients with my own hands. So that was a hard one. Um, and then of course I chose to do this and we got nailed with a pandemic. So I was trying to struggle to find ways of building a burn program in a very large level one facility. And um, all I could do, I couldn't go out into the community and talk to the different kids and stuff like that with the burn stuff. So I ran my own data and I did this giant deep dive in archaic electronic health records. I hate to even admit this, but we used Meditech back then. It was terrible. But I found out that like in a 5-year period, we had 228 burns on the pediatric side, and 86 of them were ramen noodles. And I was like, I was stunned. I was like, that doesn't even make sense. So I went and talked to the ED and they're like, oh yeah, they come in all the time. I was like, why aren't you telling people about this? I was like, well, it's because every group is so siloed. You have your ED all your ED people are siloed and your OR people are siloed and your intensivists are siloed. And so just being out of the whole program completely, being able to look back on it, we could see that, well, that was something we needed to address. And
And so I have a question, Denny. Where were you at the time when you did this deep dive and recognized that so many burns were coming from ramen noodles?
I had just come out of the OR. I'd been in the OR for 22 years and decided that it was time for a change. And so I went in, OU Health asked me to come and build a burn center for their adult level one facility, which is OUMC, and then Oklahoma Children's Hospital, which is across the street. It's also a level one facility.
Very nice. And then you dug into the data, found out like, oh my goodness, and this is avoidable, right?
Easily, easily avoidable. And that's what became so fascinating with the entire trip is that over time, I found out it wasn't just because of lack of parental control. It wasn't due to, just not paying attention to what our kids are doing. It's a basic lack of understanding of how microwaves work. That's how it all came down to. So it came down to all these kids were burning themselves because they were cooking ramen like pour the water in a bowl on top of their brick of noodles and stick it in the microwave. Well, all of our microwaves are above our heads. So they go in there and they put those in there and they're physically looking at it when they go to pull it out of the microwave. But a microwave works with a frictional type base. It doesn't work by heating through a concrete source. So you end up superheating the water that's in there, and the surface tension of the water keeps it from boiling. And when you ask a kid, how do you know when something is boiling? They're going to say, I see the bubbles in it. Well, if it's not bubbling, they have no idea it's that hot. And then they pull it out and they're looking at it. It's above their head and it's a giant burn. It goes on their face, their chest, their arms, and we have just an exponential amount of these catastrophic burns that's where we are targeting most of our education.
So, Denny, I have another question. When you recognize this, you were at OU and you're
Yes.
still at OU.
Yes.
Have you been speaking with other burn directors, coordinators all over the country? And is
Yeah.
this something that happens all the time, not just in Oklahoma?
Yes. In fact, I got asked to come to Washington, D.C. to go and speak with the Consumer Product Safety Commission because apparently I went to this firefighters conference several years ago, like 3 years ago, and there was a gentleman there that was from the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and he picked up one of my ramen noodle burn packages, and he said, "Can I take this to my wife? She works in education." I did not know he worked for Consumer Product Safety Commission. So he takes it back to Washington and runs his own independent studies. And he verified all my data and he validated all the claims I made on all my education stickers. And then they invited me up to go to this uh, like a meet and greet intensive group that is addressing scald burns in pediatric cases. And that was just last year. And because of that meeting, now I'm in touch with everybody. I mean, I'm in touch with Johns Hopkins and all these. I think I have 6 different groups right now that I'm working actively with on partnering with to do the ramen noodle injury prevention. And in fact, I just got pictures from a level 1 facility in Jacksonville, Florida, that just rolled out their noodle stuff, and they sent me pictures of how well it's working. So, yes, it is all over the United States.
And is some of the education on where to place the microwave, what boiling versus non-boiling looks like? Is the education in schools from school nurses? Like, give us all the down and dirty, because this is why I say nurses make the impossible possible and nurses rule the world, because you are crushing it.
Well, it has been a passion. I never thought when I graduated nursing school back in 2004, I never thought I would be known for ramen noodles, but here we are. It's so difficult to think of how organic this was when it started because at first we started with going out into schools like little health fairs, or like there's this a group down on the border of Texas and Oklahoma that does all the fourth graders from all 8 surrounding counties show up for a day and they have all this health education. Well, what that means is I have 20 different groups of 40 kids that come in every 15 minutes. So they get intensive 15 minutes of education on this. And they rotate through like 12 different groups, 12, 14 different groups. And what we discovered is depending on where you are in the system, like down there, I target a lot of the education towards, well, we have a lot of rural kids down there and they live on farms or they're not anywhere near anybody close to them. They can't just call 911 because 911 takes an hour to get to them. Or they can't just run to their neighbor's house for help because their neighbor is 2.5 miles away. So we have to tailor, okay, well, what happens when you do get burned? What do you do? And it's how do you keep yourself safe if you are in that house by yourself? And so we've really tailored it towards being able to learn to not put hot things on the edges of counters if you have younger siblings at home, because it's younger siblings, pull them off the counters on top of them. Don't use like a tablecloth. Tablecloths are detrimental if you have a little kid because they're going to pull it and they pull everything that's hot on top of them. And we've had a lot of those. So it's just tailored according to our very rural community out here.
And Danny, what do you do? Let's just say there's an 11-year-old and the 11-year-old's home by themselves, mom and dad are at work, and they burn themselves. What's the first thing they're supposed to do?
They need to take off any of the clothes that's touching whatever it is that's burned and put it under running cool water. So if it's just your arm, if it's on your hands or your arm, turn on the sink in the kitchen and just put your hand in there and let it keep running because that is going to reduce or stop the burning process. And the reason we say take off jewelry or things like that is because you don't know how much it's going to swell. So we want to make sure that you can take off the jewelry so it doesn't impede progress. And the other thing we really push is if it is a younger sibling that's little, like a toddler or just a small little guy, make sure that if it goes down the front of them, you take off that diaper because the diaper absorbs that hot scalding liquid and will hold it up against the child until it's removed. That's what they're supposed to do. So, and then of course, the second the scalding process is going down, that's where they're going to, call for help. Make sure you get an adult there. A lot of them say they have access to neighbors and things like that. But if they don't, we have to tell them that, stopping the burning process is key. And if it goes on a sandwich, do not put it on your body. Don't put mustard, mayonnaise, all those things. I have a list of 20, I think that I've got 28 things on my list now of things people have put on their burns, and it's funny.
Wow. And people think if you put an ice cube on your burn,
Mm.
and because that's why they're not really supposed to do that, right?
No, no. And
Okay.
the easiest way I can explain that is if it's 100 degrees outside and you're standing outside and you're sweating to death and you put an ice cube in each one of your hands, you're still going to get goosebumps because your body does not know it's not freezing to death. It's going to shunt all that blood to the center of your body to protect your organs because it thinks you're freezing to death. So that means all that blood carrying oxygen is going away from your burn and it's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So we don't put ice or really cold stuff on burns.
And so what are some of your next steps? Well, what are you going to do next? I know you're working with the consumer product people in Washington, D.C. What do you think's next?
Well, they asked me to help them with a microwave water-based food task force. So I'm going to be starting that probably pretty soon. Um, it was supposed to start the beginning of this year, but we've had a lot of the furlough incidents in Washington, so he kind of is in and out of office now. But I think also collaboration with centers to make sure that they are able to successfully launch this. And we want to put QR codes on all of our stickers so we can start collecting all the data from what goes out so we can see the impact in person. And then we have loads of people that are still reaching out because they just want us to come out and bring ramen. We've given out 36,000 ramen now. Just here at OU.
Do you partner with Ramen at all? I mean, are they aware of all this work?
You know what? I have reached out to both big companies, Top Nason and Marijuana, and I cannot get anybody to respond.
Well, guess what? After this podcast, somebody's going to respond.
Okay,
That,
okay.
that's the hope. That's the shift. Then
Yes, there's the shift. We've gone global with ramen.
it's so true. Here's what I think of. I used to love ramen noodles, and now I have high blood pressure, so I can't do all that sodium. But when you're home by yourself, when you're a college kid and you're broke as a joke, ramen noodles, they hit hard. Um, but what I remember is making the ramen noodles, sitting crisscross applesauce,
Yes,
and you're trying to get up, the dog jumps and you spill it on yourself, and boom,
yes.
instant burn. So
That's
I'm sure,
exactly where they get burned.
yep, exactly.
Or they're holding their phone in their hand when they're walking around with a full bowl, or they go to sit on something squishy like a couch, and they end up spilling it all over their lap. But it's all the burns. I can tell every single ramen burn that comes through. I can tell it's ramen just by how it looks.
Because the noodles, is that how they burn?
No, it's just all the places where they land. I
Because
can
it kind of splatters.
yes, you know. And then, in fact, I have one that just went home yesterday.
Nice. Good work. Well, I'm here to tell you, Denny, I'm so thrilled that we finally connected, even though we've kind of been connected, but didn't even
Right.
know it. I really want you to come back in 6, 8, 10 months after you've gone global. And I can say I knew her when. And I just want to say thank you, Denny. Your shift makes the difference. Keep shifting. Enjoying the shift? Help us reach more nurse leaders by rating and reviewing us on your podcast app. It takes just a minute, but makes a big impact. Search for The Shift, tap those stars, and share what you love. Your feedback shapes our future episodes and helps others discover us. Remember, Rate, review, and amplify the shift today.